Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. In this video we are going to be going over your latest transfer news for Leeds United Football Club, and we have got quite a bit to get into today as well, which is fantastic. We've got a link to Mathys Abline, who's a French forward that plays for Nantes. We're going to talk a bit about him potentially being an option. Then we're going to talk about Uche. Obviously, he was linked earlier in the window to Leeds United, and it has come up again. I get the impression on that end that Getafe are pushing this deal. You might get a good deal on him as well. So that could be an option for Leeds United, but there is other clubs interested. We're also going to talk a bit about Noah Okafor as well, a few final details, and also a few Premier League clubs that potentially bigger than you expected who have also been linked to Okafor, but he's obviously chosen Leeds United, so that's something we're going to mention. I'm not also sure that all of that is completely true, but yeah, we'll mention that as well. And then we'll also sort of talk about a few other transfer updates as well. You will notice on the signing scale that as there is a few people that have been added, and there's a few who have been removed from the signing scale who we're going to talk about as well. And finally, we're going to talk a bit about Pascal Struijk and the interest from Villarreal. Obviously, this was mentioned by the Football Insider, but it's not really why I want to talk about. I want to talk about it for another reason, which I will get onto at that point in the video. Also, I've been asked to talk about my name. My name actually is Scott Worrell. Hokianga, I believe is how you pronounce the name. A New Zealand Leeds fan commented on the video yesterday asking if I could announce my name on the video. So there you are. It's Scott. So if you want to talk to me in the comments below, you can refer to me as Scott. That is absolutely fine. But yeah, before we get into it, of course, though, if you could help the channel by dropping like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massively helps the channel and helps it boost it, because I've decided on a name. I've got a name, people. I'm trying to hit, and it's probably unrealistic if I'm being totally honest, but I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers up there, and it will update as people sub by the end of the transfer window, which I believe is the 1st of September. So if you could help me with that, that would be brilliant. But yeah, let us get into the show and start with Mathys Abline, is how I think you say it, or Mathys Abline. Caught offside. Reporting tomorrow, this Leeds are in the race to sign under 21 striker Mathys Abline. Now, I don't know loads about Abline. It's actually the first I've heard of him this morning, but of course, because your boy's helpful, I've actually done a bit of research. So for anyone that doesn't know about Abline, he's 22 years old, 6 foot tall. He's predominantly a striker, but can play across the front three, and he scored 9 goals in Ligue last season for Nantes. Price hasn't been reported in the report, but I would guess around about the £20 million mark, probably, for Abline. I think that's probably where he's worth. And it's also stated in the report as well that that he would be interested in an ambitious move, as they call it in Caught Offside, of going to the Premier League. However, there is a bit of competition from Wolverhampton Wanderers. Apparently, they see him as a bit of a Cunha replacement. What do I think about this? Yes, as I said, I don't know tons about him. So in terms of a profile, I tried to watch a compilation to sort of gauge this morning what he's like, but I just don't think that's a way of doing it. And I don't want to feed you guys false information that I just don't know. So yeah, overall, as I said, it's not something that sets the world on fire from the outside looking in. I don't think, in my opinion. I also am not totally convinced that if we're going to buy a striker, it's got to be someone definitely of that next ilk. So look at Demirovic, who's obviously still on the signing scale, still at a 1. I don't think he's going to happen. I don't really think this Abline's going to happen. But it'd have to be someone with a bit more pedigree, I think, than Abline. I do think Abline, at 22 years old, he's played in the French League for a number of years now. So I think he was playing in there at 18 years old from when I've looked back at his career. Not loads of starts and stuff, and he has been moved around and obviously at times gone on loan and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one. I think if this story gets more advanced, I will probably look into it in a bit more detail. But at the moment, yeah, as I said, 6 foot tall, can play across the front line, is a striker. I think about 22 years old, £20 million. That is the update regarding it. But I don't want to go into too much detail because, as I said, sports Caught Offside are not always the greatest for sources. They're probably a tier 3. Like if you've got 5 tiers, you've got people who just talk nonsense, and then you've got sort of tier 1s, you like David Ornsteins, etc. Then you've potentially got tier 2s like your Sasha Tavolis and Santi FM. I think for me, Caught Offside, I probably step down from them guys as well. So yeah, that is the update anyway on Abline. But anyway, a nice new story, a nice another to add to the. We need to keep the name, don't we? Leeds United have been Linked FC all window. It'd be a shame getting close to the end of the window that we don't become Linked FC anymore. So there is that. But yeah, that is the update on Abline for you there. In terms of Uche, now we know Leeds United have been linked to Uche sort of all window now, but Marca reported that he has got he's got a 25 million release clause, which I think we knew anyway. But because of Getafe's situation, they are willing to look at offers around about the around the 20 million euro mark, so about the 17 million pound mark, similar to what obviously played for Okafor, which Leeds United, we love a player under 20 million quid. We basically bought everyone in world football under 20 million quid. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I think that makes it probably more interesting for Leeds United. There is other clubs linked as well. According to Marca, there is Wolves also linked again, so we're teams to be up face and face. We're in a sort of straight up battle with Wolves right now for apparent signings, but that is good. That they are obviously interested. Brentford are also interested as well, and I think at times Sunderland have been interested as well. In terms of his stats last year, he got 4 goals and 6 assists in La Liga last year. He is at number 10 by trade. That's the sort of position he plays. My feeling, to be honest, around this one is that they are desperate to sell Getafe because they need to sell to get players basically because the way it works in La Liga is that you've got to before you register players, you've got to have your financial accounts in a certain manner. We've seen it before at Barcelona where they've not had the financial accounts in a certain manner and they've not been able to register players. Like I remember this, did it happen with Rafinha at one point? It's definitely happened with a few Barca players where they've not been able to register until they get wages off their wage bill. And I think that is the situation that Getafe are in right now. They need to sell him to sort of raise money. So I think that there might be an option here for a bargain for Leeds United if they want. It's just is Uche the correct profile for Leeds United? Because I think when I look at sort of what I watched on Monday night and what I think we need, for me a number 10 is not a priority. The reason I don't think it's a priority is I like the 3 midfield. I like the way we did it on Monday night. I like Tanaka, I like Ampadu, and I like Longstaff. I like that as our sort of really powerful, strong midfield. That's what I like. I'm now, obviously I've been quite obsessed with El Canoes all window. But now I'm not as sure as I want him because yes, I do think El Canoes, for example, works hard. But in terms of his physical attributes and his strength, he's not as strong as Tanaka is, and he won't be as strong in the tackle as Tanaka was. And as I said, the balance that we had at the weekend, as I said, something that Sunderland did, I think, and something that Newcastle have done over a number of years now, was so good. I wouldn't want to break that up and throw a number 10 in. I don't think you need, as I said, a number 6, a number 8, and a number 10. I don't think you always need that. And I think the way we played Monday, I see it, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, which I think is really good, actually, and you should probably check it out if you enjoy my sort of content. But I talked about the game in a bit more detail and potentially a few points that we didn't pick up on. And as I said, I see a vision now, which is what I said in that video, where I do think if we bought the right players in attacking areas, this midfield 3 would work. So I don't see Leeds United, for me, in my opinion, I know there's been links, and I know Baron Cross said yesterday that sort of, in his opinion, sort of Leeds United will look at a number 10 and a striker as the next 2. That's not what I'd be doing personally. I think our most important position right now is the right winger position. I think that is the most important position we've got. I don't think, from what I watched on Monday night and what we've seen from James in the Premier League a few years ago now, I know he's come on leaps and bounds, and I think he has. I think that's true. But I still look at his decision making against better teams and against better players, and I don't think it'll quite be good enough. And of course on Monday night as well, it was only against James Garner, who, we've been honest, is a holding midfield player, a right-footed holding midfielder playing left back, and if he's not doing an outstanding job against him, you do wonder what sort of job he's going to do against better fullbacks. So I think that's something to bear in mind. For me, as I said, I'd be throwing the kitchen sink at like a Bakwa at Strasbourg. I know obviously Forest were linked to him, and then I think they had a offer rejected around 35 million quid. But Leeds United should have money to spend. I generally would pay probably 40 million quid for him, because the thing is with Bakwa, I believe he's about 21 years old, 22 years old, or even maybe less. But it's around the age profile. And we've seen players that don't even do that well in the Premier League reaching them fees anyway. Like if Leeds were to get relegated, for example, like Ipswich were, at worst case scenario, we don't want to get relegated, and I don't think we will get relegated. But if we were to, you look at the fees that like an Omari Hutchinson has brought in this summer of £38 million, who's a guy who scored 2 goals in the Premier League last year. And they can, because they're so young, you can still get back them fees that you've paid anyway. So it's like an almost non-risk signing for me with Bakwa. Like as long as he did anything in the Premier League next year, you'd better get your 40 million quid back. So yes, it sounds like a really high price point, but I think Leeds United should have the money to spend there. And I do think, as I said, the likes of a Bakwa or a Nico Gonzalez. Obviously, there was reports from Graham Smythe who said this, and then obviously it came out that Atletico wanted him, but they didn't want to pay the €30 million fee. I've mentioned this before on this channel. and they're at about €20 million fee. So it gets on and gets on and gets on in the window, and I'd be looking at them sort of options. And they're just two like I've named in a few videos recently, but there'll be loads of different opportunities on the right wing slot that of potential players we can bring in. And as I said, that's where I'd be spending my money now with Leeds United. For me, the most two priority positions, in my opinion, right this second, are a right winger and a backup fullback. They are the most important. And then my next position I'd be going for would be a number 9 before I would buy a number 10, because I like the dynamic of what I saw on Monday night, and I think that will work, and I think that's what Leeds United should stick with. I don't think adding in a creative number 10 who's sort of not as good on the ball and not as powerful, or not as good off the ball and not as powerful as like Snacker is the way we should be going. I think Leeds United, as I said in yesterday's video, will get most of the chance creation from winning the ball up high, as opposed to trying to break down a low block where you need someone who's got the IQ to slip a ball through between like the left back and the centre half to get a full back through and then put a ball across. I don't think we're going to need that sort of profile. I think we're going to need someone, if anything, I think we need another Tanaka, because I would worry if Tanaka went down injured. I don't think we have an obvious replacement there who's got the sort of the ability on the ball that Tanaka's got, but also the sort of the off the ball work that he provides as well. So I think that's, if anything, I think that's what we're looking at. And I think Uche is a bit of that in terms of in his game, so potentially that's something. But I did think I'd just mention that when we talk about Uche. Anyway, moving on to Noah Okafor and the story there. So obviously Noah Okafor, Romano said this morning, and I think flight trackers, we know the people who like flight trackers. Flight trackers, I'm not obsessed with, in truth. I think we're here anyway if it's going to happen. I don't need to track his flight to know it, but people are up to their own thing and will do their own thing, and that's absolutely fine. But obviously he is flying in, I think he's now landed in Leeds Bradford Airport today. Now it sounds like I'm tracking flights. I am not tracking flights. I haven't been on Flight Radar, although, as I said, I know a lot of you guys do, and that is not an issue to me at all. But yeah, he's obviously landed in Leeds anyway now to complete his medical and then hopefully to sign as a Leeds United player. But it has been reported by the Mail this morning, which I think is interesting, that Arsenal and Everton were also interested in Okafor. He doesn't say how much they were interested, and actually they actually made a full-on approach for Okafor. It seems maybe I could see Everton going in for it. I think we watched Everton on Monday night, and I could see Okafor sort of working for them. If Arsenal have gone in for him, that I would be surprised. I don't think he's like. I think he's a good signing for Leeds. I think he'd be a good signing for Everton. I'm not sure he'd be at the level for Arsenal, and that's not a knock on Okafor at all. I mean, there's very few players that are. But that seems unlikely, although it has been reported, so I thought I'd mention it. And if he has picked Leeds United over Arsenal, one, that seems quite unlikely, but two, fantastic. This is great news. So either way, there's nothing in this story, but I thought I'd bring it in terms of that is what's going on right now. But yeah, overall, as I said, I'm really happy with Okafor. I think I've mentioned it enough now, so I don't want to go over it on it. But yeah, a good addition. I think it's encouraging that clubs have been linked with him, because I do think there has been other Premier League offers. That was said anyway, Roman. I do think that if it was quite Arsenal, I'm not so sure. But yeah, that is the update regarding Noah Okafor as well. Moving on then to tie up a few loose ends. El Khanoussi's looks like he's going to go to Crystal Palace for 32 million. Done, thank God, the saga's over. I said I won't mention it unless something major happens. Well, this is pretty major. It looks like he's going to go to Palace. Although it does say Palace have got the final decision, but they have agreed a fee in the region of £32 million for him. So yeah, that is that done. Don't need to worry about him anymore. Don't even want him anywhere anymore. Have that El Khanouss. Have that. I've been begging it for it all the window, and now I've realised on Monday night you wouldn't even start for Leeds, pal. You wouldn't. Tanaka's better what we needed. See you later. You enjoy your time at Crystal Palace. I'm not salty remotely. Moving on then to Muniz. Obviously, Muniz again is no longer on the signing scale. Had been for so long. He wasn't even on yesterday's video, Muniz. Bye-bye, Muniz. Although, maybe not bye-bye, Muniz. Because apparently, well, it's not apparently, this is what's happening. So, Kristovic, obviously a Leeds United target this summer, who turned down the chance to sign for Leeds. See you later then, pal. But he's now going to Atlanta instead of Muniz. And Muniz is now not going. His Atlanta move's now off. They bidded up to, I think, 40 million euros was the final bid. I think they put 3 bids in, with the highest getting to 40 million euros. And Fulham said no. I think there's a bit of recency bias. Muniz has probably scored at the weekend. I think that's why, one of the reasons probably why Fulham have not sold him. And also it talks about the fact that Fulham have not been able to get the replacement in they wanted, which we know is a similar situation actually at Newcastle with Isak, where they basically said they're not going to sell him because they've missed out on their targets. And I think that's what's happened with Fulham. I think they've looked at a few targets, realised it's not worth it to sell Muniz, and now he's staying at Fulham. So that is the end of the saga there. So, you know, and I'd rather him have gone to Atlanta than stayed at Fulham, in truth. I mean, I'd rather him come to Leeds, obviously, of all of them. Although I won't be paying, if they're turning down 40 million euros from a non-Premier League club, a club that are not going to be in competition with Fulham next year or this season now, how much would they want from Leeds United? Like, I've seen people already say, oh, does this mean he's on for Leeds United? No, it doesn't. As I said, if they'd turned down 40 million euros from Atlanta, who are not in any competition with Fulham, a team that have just been promoted, who've just won the first game, who Fulham will look at and think, God, there's a chance we could go down and they could stay up. We don't want to sell our best striker to them. I think they'd be generally talking 50 million quid, which is just outrageous numbers. Maybe you get it over the line for 45 million, but we don't want to be giving Fulham 45 million for Rodrigo Muniz, in my opinion. As I said, for me, our right winger spot's where we should be targeting the most, in my opinion. So yeah, Muniz is technically still on the table, but very unlikely it ain't going to happen, in truth. And the final story is from Football Insider, and people will not Football Insider, and that's absolutely fine. I do think Peter O'Rourke, who's the one who reported this, is the best of the Football Insider journalists by an absolute mile. It's not even close. And actually, in terms of EFL news, like last year with Leeds United, he was actually pretty good while we're in the Championship. I don't think he's as good with the Premier League. I don't think he has them Premier League links as much. But I said he reported anyway a few days ago now, and I haven't mentioned it because I've been waiting for a time to mention it. But he's reported that Pascal Struijk is an interest to Villarreal. Now, people are going to jump up and down about this and say, well, it's not true, blah, 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 which is fair enough, and you might be right. I have been worried about this a bit so far this window, and I haven't said it yet on this channel. Sunderland have had their big sale of Bellingham, of course, for 30 million to Dortmund for PSR reasons. And I look at our team, and I know we've only spent 75 million, so we might be all right at the moment, but if we're going to spend another 50 plus million quid, which is what I expect Leeds United to do, I do think I wouldn't be surprised if we need a PSR sale. I don't think I'd be that surprised. People are not going to like to hear this, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. I've sort of thought it all window, really. With the new caps that you've got on spending for newly promoted clubs, which we know exists, which for anyone that doesn't know, basically, because Leeds United have the last 3 years that Leeds United have existed as a football club, 2 have been in the Championship and 1 have been in the Premier League, and they've changed the rules this summer, annoyingly and typical as Leeds United get promoted, where rather than being able to lose 35 million in each 3 years, so you can lose then 105 million over a 3-year period, Leeds United could only lose one lot of 35 million for the year they're in the Premier League, and then the 2 years beforehand we're in the Championship both years, and we can only lose the losses that the Championship clubs can lose, which I believe is around about the sort of £15 million mark. So basically we can't lose as much as everybody else in the league. Sunderland in the exact same position. Burnley not quite as much, because Burnley have had, in the last 3 years, they've been in the Premier League once, the Championship once, and the Premier League once, like they are now. So they can lose a bit more than we can, and about an extra sort of, I think, 15 to 20 million pounds. But we are about 40 million out of pocket in terms of losses available, I believe, something around that figure anyway, than the rest of the Premier League, which is ridiculous, by the way, when you've got a situation where the Premier League clubs keep staying up and everybody keeps going back down, because you think you give the promoted clubs more money to spend, if anything, rather than less. But they've actually made it so you can lose less money now if you get promoted. Obviously, if we stay up for 3 years in the Premier League, so we stay up next year and the year after, we will then be on the 105 million over 3 years. But until that point, we won't be. And obviously at the moment, we're on 2 Championships, lots of losses, and 1 Premier League losses. And to stomach £125 million spend potentially this summer without adding any PSR sales, I would wonder how close we are to the margin. Now, we know we've got big deals. Like, we know we've got massive sponsorship deals, which is massive for situations like this in terms of from Red Bull, because one of the main things you've got to do with PSR is increase your profits. You have to increase your profits. You increase your profits, you can spend more money. That is how it works. That's why Villa and Newcastle can't compete with Man United, because although they're in Europe, Man United's shirt sales and revenue and TV revenue is ridiculous, which is why they're allowed to spend a lot more. But Leeds United have to up the amount of money to be spending, which is why the Red Bull deal was so good. But I still wonder if our revenue this year is going to be at a point where we can hold 125 million net loss in a transfer window. So All I'm saying is I'm remaining optimistic that we won't have to do a PSR sale, but I'm concerned that we might do, which is why I brought it up. And I do think that of all the players that we could sell on a PSR deal, the only thing people I can think of really were Joseph, who's already gone, who would be about 10 million quid because he's from the academy. Tanaka, because we bought him for 3 million. But there's no way we can sell Tanaka because we don't have anyone else like him, in my opinion, that can do what he can do. Nonto potentially could be one. But again, do we want to lose Nonto? And Pascal Struijk, I think they're the most obvious ones because they're the ones that we bought for the least that we can make the most on in terms of selling. We bought Struijk, I think, for $1 million, less than, and he's been here so long now, he's basically will count on the books as free. So if we say selling for 30 million quid, we bank 30 million on our books straight away. Tanaka we bought for 3 million quid, but with the loss of his value on his contract now, he's probably valued at about 2 million on our books. So if we sold him again for 30 million, we'd bank a 28 million profit. Same with Nonto. Again, we bought him for, I think, 4 million. He's been off a new contract now and other things, and he's been here a long time. He's probably valued at $1 million on our books. So then if you sold him for 30 million, you bank 29 million. So I think they're, and obviously I think that they're all different in valuations. I don't think they're all 30 million, but I was just using that as an example. But yeah, I just think that's something to bear in mind. That I am, and I thought I'd mention at the end of the video, I am slightly concerned that we are going to need a PSR sale. And I think the one that they do of all of them is probably Pascal Struijk. And that is because we've already bought Villarreal. We think Rodon's a really good centre-back. We've already bought Bonar, the Wolfsburg centre-back. We've brought in as well. We don't, do we need a £30 million? Potentially, Biol's coming in to start for Leeds United. I don't think he will in the next game unless we play a 5-back. But you could easily have Rodon and Biol as your starters and then sell Struijk. And is it worth it? You'd rather do him than probably sell potentially one of the others. I'm looking at it. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention it because I think I just wouldn't be that surprised. I'm hoping the Red Bull deal's big enough to stop it, but it could not be. But yeah, thanks all for watching. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you could, drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Helps the channel and helps me hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, which I'm really trying to do by the end of the transfer window. So yeah, thanks all for watching, and I'll see you later, everybody. Bye for now.